Okay, Torah Or, Parshas Toldot. We didn't learn the Smaima yet. Page Yud Zayin at the bottom. It says, Eilu Toldot, and the Yitzchak, these are the generations of Yitzchak. Yitzchak gave birth to Avram. Avram was the son of Yitzchak. It says, Smerli Tachas Sureshi. His left hand is under my head, V'imini Tchapkeni, and his right hand will hug me. So it says, there's Smel and Yamin. There's left and right in the same pasuk. Smel, b'chinas Yitzchak mimato l'mayla. Smel, which is the level of Gvura, Yira, that's the level of Yitzchak, which is from lower to higher, as I'll explain. The Yaminei hu b'chinas Avram l'mayla l'mato. And the right hand is the level of Avram Avinu, which goes from higher to lower. In other words, Avram and Yitzchak represent two Avedis and Avedis Hashem. Avram Avinu is bringing godliness down. Yitzchak is bringing Kedusha up. So he says, Lahav, that to understand, I'm sorry. Therefore, the meat of Avram was Achnas Sarchim, hospitality, which means I am in better position than you. You don't have a place to eat, and I give you food. And Yitzchak, we find that this week's parsha was digging wells. What's the concept of a well? You dig deep, and then the water comes up. Lahavin, that to understand the difference between Avram and Yitzchak, it says in the pasuk v'yohavta. There's a mitzvah in the Torah to love Hashem. This is the famous question of the Maggid. How can Hashem command us to love? You can command an action. You can't command on a feeling. By the way, today's class is sponsored by Avram Aradian for the Aliyah and Neshama of his father's Yortzeit, Tzvanya ben Michal, Shama Shirav and Aliyah. But the question is, how can you have a commandment on a feeling? If I don't like it, what am I supposed to do? We learned this many times. But he says, because the answer to the question the Maggid says, first, before v'yohavta, it says, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. You have to meditate into Hashem Echad. When you meditate properly into Hashem Echad, and intellect stimulates emotions, then v'yohavta doesn't mean you should love, v'yohavta means you will love. When a person meditates in the level of Echad, the way nothing exists in comparison to Hashem, which is the level of tzimtzum. When you say like this, Shema Yisrael, Havai Elokeinu, Elokeinu means Elokim, tzimtzum, limitation, gvura, contraction, concealment. And we say Elokeinu, Velokei Aviseinu, meaning, which is the level of tzimtzum. Pirush, Sheyesava Bechinas Aviseinu. That it should become created, in order to become created, Aviseinu, which is Chachma Ubina. Aviseinu is Avram and Yitzchak, right? Basically. So in order to create Aviseinu, there has to be the level of Elokei Aviseinu, the tzimtzum, for godliness to come down into a level of Chachma and Bina. Godliness, the infinite state of godliness, cannot come down into a finite level of Chachma and Bina and Das and, all that. So there has to be a tzimtzum. In order, it has to be Adul Chakim. In order to have the level of Chachma and Bina. Which is nothing compared to Hashem. Like we say, Antu Chad V'lei B'chushban, Lachin Sarach Kedem B'chinas Elokeinu, which is a level of tzimtzum. And then we say, Velokei Aviseinu with a vav. Hamshacha sheyisava b'chinas Aviseinu. That it comes down to the level of Aviseinu. Meaning, Baruch Atah, right, Hashem comes down. In order for Hashem to come down, there has to be Elokeinu, which is a tzimtzum for us, Velokei Aviseinu, and even the level in continuation with vav. Then in order for there to be Aviseinu, there also has to be a tzimtzum of Elokei. When a person meditates in this level, bevadei kol ish Yisrael, that every person will definitely want to want to be connected to Hashem Echad, Okay? So then a person will definitely, if a person realizes the greatness of Hashem, why in the world should he want all this garbage? You can have the real thing. So therefore, what's the mitzvah of Yahavta? Not the mitzvah you should love. The mitzvah is to meditate into Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, that all this level of Chochmah and Bina, all that is the great levels are all tzimtzum, contraction, concealment, limitation. So therefore, the person will want Yahavta. That's Hashem Elokeinu. You're going to want godliness. But that's the level of longing to be close to Hashem. In other words, want to leave the present level of Gashmias and go up to Hashem. But then there has to be to bring down godliness down here. The ultimate level of light is when it comes from darkness. In other words, we learned, the Rebbe says in Tanya, Isaiah says, when it says that Shlomo Melech says, I see the advantage of wisdom over stupidity, like the greatness of light over dark. So I don't need Shlomo Melech to tell me that intelligence is better than stupidity and light is better than dark. So the Zohar says what it means is not, then it would have said, Yisin ha'er al ha'cheshech. It would have said the advantage of light over darkness. It says min ha'cheshech. What Shlomo HaMelech is saying is, Yisr Na'er, the ultimate level of light, is when darkness is, min ha'cheshech, when darkness becomes light, that's the ultimate level of light. So the Rebbe is saying like this, there has to be the longing of wanting to leave and go up to Hashem. But then at the same time, you need the return ticket to bring godliness down here, because then when godliness is down here, you transform the darkness into light. And Hashem wants the as dira b'tachtein. Hashem doesn't want a dira in Atzilus, in Gan Eden. He wants a dira down here. So we have to bring Elokus down here to transform the world. So then, you have to also is, in other words, you have to love Hashem, that you want to go up to Hashem, but then the Yahavta says Shabakach means you have to bring down godliness down here. Or the Gemara says, what does it mean? V'yahavta she'shem shamayim mis'ayiv al yadecha. The Gemara says, what does v'yahavta mean? That not only should you love Hashem, v'yahavta means you should cause others to love. In other words, you should cause other people to love Hashem. That's the level of bringing other people also to love Hashem. That's momata lamaila. And momaila lamata. It's both things. You influence others, right? And then they also want to become connected to Hashem. Pirish, la'am shech gili lokosi momaila lamata. Okay? So there's both things needed. Like we find Bamat and Torah. Vayered Hashem al Har Sinai. Hashem came down. And Moshe Rabbeinu went up the mountain. What does that represent? The level of Gilu Elokus coming down, the level of a world going up to Elokus. Because each one has an advantage that the other one doesn't have. There's an advantage of Elokus coming down, because then it's coming from above, infinite. But the problem is, that's all a gift from above. It's not the downers doing. So you can have a teacher that could teach a kid brilliant stuff, and the kid wouldn't be able to get it on his own. But when the kid works on his own, they might not have the same level of understanding that the teacher gave them, but it's their doing. So each one has an advantage over the other one. So therefore, by Matan Torah, it was both. There has to be a level of Gilui Momaila, and at the same time, there has to be the Ratz. That's why you need Ratz of V'Sheif. You need the longing to go up to Hashem, but at the same time, you need the revelation of Elokus coming down. Therefore, what is Avram? Avram Avinu's Aveda was Hachnasas Orchim, from higher to lower meaning. Shenos and La'avayim gave the Arabs to eat, and he said, Du'u l'mi mevarchem. Then he says, well, don't thank me, you have to thank Hashem. Like the famous Medrash. If they benched, he didn't charge him. If they refused to bench, he charged him a crazy exorbitant fee. Okay, so they did it. What did he want? Because what was Avram Avinu's Aveda? Avram Avinu's Aveda was to bring Elokus down into the world. Vayikra Sham b'Shem Hashem Kel Olam. Avram Avinu's Aveda was to bring Elokus down. That what Shegam Arvayim Yakiru Gdulasi. So Kol Zeh is Avram Amshach Momayla Lamata. Okay, that's Aveda of Avram Avinu. What was the Aveda of Yitzchak? Half of the parsha this week goes away with digging wells. He said, Yitzchak Chayfe Be'eres. Now the Torah doesn't have to tell us that Yitzchak was a well digger. It's a well digger. I mean, it's the Beverly Hills were hillbillies. They dug wells. But what is Yitzchak Avinu digging wells? Because Yitzchak Avinu is Gili Mimata L'mayla. Yitzchak Avinu was again, water is hidden. You have to dig deep to reveal the water coming up. Momayla L'mata. Mehelim L'gili. Commercial bird Hashemayim Sham Mehelim. When you have a pit, so before you dig the pit, the water is there, but it's concealed. Okay? So therefore, this is the difference between the Aveda of Avram and Yitzchak. Avram's Gilui were bringing Elokus into the world, even of the Arabs. Like the Medrash says, Sheshtachu lavak sheberaglehem. It's interesting. The Medrash adds a few words. It doesn't say Stam Avram Avinu gave food to Arabs. He said the Arabs that bowed to the dust of their feet, that made the worship the lowest levels. And to that level, why does the Medrash have to add? He gave food to the Arabs. The Medrash bringing out Avram Avinu brought Elokus down to the lowest of levels. Yitzchak, on the other hand, was the level of digging wells. And now the Alter Rebbe asked, but Avram also dug wells. It says, we find, like the pasuk says, Avram dug wells, and the Plishtim stuffed them up, and Yitzchak redug those wells. So he says, Plishtim. Okay? But the Plishtim stuffed them up. The Yitzchak Chafer and Yitzchak redug them. The Kardal Hem Shemesh Geshemesh Shekala of Harishan, the names that he called the father, Harishan Malev Hasheni Chaser. Okay? If you look in the pasuk says like this. He redug the wells that his father dug. The Kardal Hem Shemesh, he called them the names. Okay? Over there, the names, Shemesh is with a Vav. Kashemesh Shenikula Mavian, the second Shemesh, names, is without a Vav. In the same pasuk, he called them Shemesh, called them names. Kashem is like the name that Avram called them. The first one, Yitzchak's names, is with a Vav. Avram's name is without a Vav. Meaning, Fishaydei Achvirid the Yitzchak. Because through the digging of Yitzchak, Leinivs Koid Nevi Yosef. They didn't stuff him up. They fought over them, but they didn't stuff him up. Meaning that Kedusha was brought down. Which is the level of Vav, Al-Kain HaYishem is Mali Vav. Therefore, that Shemesh of Yitzchak was bringing Elokus down. Avol Shemesh Avram. Chasevav Yishasitim Plishtim. Because the Plishtim stuffed the meaning, Shaliash Lechitzein Yanika Behem. What does it mean they stuffed? What does it mean the Plishtim stuffed them up? The Plishtim got nourishment from them. In other words, like this. In addition to the fact that Avram dug wells because Chesed has Gvura in it, and there's no question Yitzchak had hospitality because that's what he learned from Avram Avinu, but that's not the emphasis of what their Aveda was. And he said, Avram Avinu dug wells, but there was no continuity of it. There was no Vav, there was no Hamshacha bringing down, because that level that Avram Avinu did, Plishtim had a connection to. Yitzchak's Aveda of digging wells because that was his ultimate level. So that was the job, done right the first time, like they say.
Really done well,
Yeah.
Really done
I mean, he had his servants digging wells.
I know, but it's just bringing up or down.
No, they actually dug wells. The Chafar Beres, the Pasuk says he dug. Now, he is servant, but they're his servants, his Aveda. He dug wells. Chen Ayedech fears the Yishem is with Vav, or La'as and Lavei, and therefore the Medrash says like this. La'as and Lavei, when Mashiach comes, we're going to say about Yitzchak ki ata avinu. This is what the Medrash says. That when Mashiach comes, Yitzchak is going to be the Iker one. Why? She'ikat seigva simcha. Why will it be? Because the Iker tzchek and simcha will be the level of Yitzchak min mata l'mayla, from lower to higher, asher b'china zu ein ketz v'tachlis. Meaning like this. Let's give an example of raising kids, let's say, or teaching students. So when you raise your kids, you're raising them l'mayla l'mata. Okay? You're teaching them how to do it. And then when they become what you became, hopefully not, hopefully they're better. When they become, let's say, your parents raising children. The ultimate goal is that children should become parents. Yeah? The simcha is when they reach that level. When they become that level. When you do it m'mayla l'mata, that's coming as a gift from above. What's the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is they become what they should become. That's the Avodah of Yitzchak. And therefore, that's the ultimate tzchaik. The ultimate simcha is mimata l'mayla. So therefore, the Alter Rebbe says, the Medrash says, we're going to call ki Yitzchak is going to be ki ata avinu. Why? Because the ultimate tzchaik is yeh b'chinas yitzim asher b'chinas zu ein ketz v'tachlis. That's unlimited. Why? Avram b'chinas mimayla l'mata yeshkul hamshocha l'mata. Momayla l'mata, it depends how much the keli is. That's how much you can get. Avram, based upon Avram. One is Amshacham, Sheyesava b'chinas chubdat silas alakei aviseinu Amshacha based b'biyah. Therefore, we say like this: Avraham, v'yermehineni. Yeah. Why twice Avram? One is to bring down Alukus into Atzilas, and one is to bring Alukus into Biyah. But he said, Mash'en ken Yitzchak b'chinas momata l'mayla, en kes v'tachlis, ha'koyur u'mechasela, and that's the ultimate nisavi ikar tzchaik. That's the ultimate tzchaik. Why? Because the Gemara says, ki gemira, we know, mei mishmaya mei v'yoyev v'mishkal l'shakla. Okay? Meaning, okay, it's too late. Okay, we'll continue. It's a story in the Gemara that a mayor didn't have food and he went out to heaven and he's davened and all of a sudden a hand came out from heaven with a golden leg of a table. And then his wife had a dream, that everybody's sitting by a four-legged table except them in Gan Eden. And then his wife said, take it back. So he went back and he davened and the hand came out and took it back. So the Gemara says there was a bigger miracle than the hand coming down to begin with. So the Gemara said, without the Gemara, we know, min shmai me'ev yoiv, from heaven they give it, but they don't take back. Once heaven gives, they don't take back. So here was a bigger miracle that they took it back. So, okay, whatever. To be continued.